The help that I end up with is very rarely help. Matter of fact, oftentimes it is the opposite of help. I'll give you an example. All the people who worked at Safeway who wanted to tell me to plug in at the outlets there and to come inside of the Safeway when these people were threatening me and harassing me and assaulting me. They also wanted to tell me to taser him or them, or to shoot them, or a great many other things like that. Instead of listening to understand, I'm going to give you a whole list of things that most people interrupt to say. They will interrupt in the middle of me telling important details to tell me they're sorry multiple times. Or they'll interrupt me to ask me if I want something to drink or something to eat. And I don't need you to be nice, I need you to fucking listen. Or they'll ask me, don't you have somebody else you can ask? I am asking anybody who will fucking listen. Literally anybody who will listen. That should be my friends and family. Unfortunately, I don't actually have any. Because friends, when you're in that situation, are going to listen to you and help you to turn it in. All of these people playing stupid about turning in abuse know that you have to turn in the abuse to law enforcement. That's the first step. But when you don't help the victim to turn it into law enforcement, and law enforcement takes advantage of those people because they don't want to do their job. When you force your friend to go in by themselves, and they're already afraid enough, and you force them to go by themselves because it has to be turned in now, immediately. But you just want to talk about yourself. This is your idea of helping. You want to talk about yourself. Or talk about how useless the fucking cops are. Or how they wouldn't do anything for your fucking grandma. Well, your grandma should have fucking recorded it. That's the difference between me and the fucking bullshit with your grandma. The shit with your grandma that happened 20 fucking years ago got nothing to do with me. Those same cops aren't here anymore. Or they want to tell me they're sick or they're too busy. Well, okay, that's fine. If you're sick and busy, the fact is that the least you can do is admit that I asked you for help and you told me you were sick or busy. That is the least you can fucking do. Or they tell me that people are threatening their spouses and children, threatening to kill them for trying to help me. Here's the thing, all of these people who wanted to argue on Facebook were not trying to help me. They should not have been arguing with people on Facebook. They should not have been speaking for me. They should not have been assuming and speaking for me. When I begged people to stop speaking for me, they did horrible shit to me. They played victim like I was a horrible person because they were just trying to help. Well, how about you find out what the fuck is going on before you make things worse by literally lying to people? And then, of course, I got to try to show evidence that I went to people for help and that those people took advantage of me, abused me, did not listen, and bullied me into doing things that were against my best interest and did not help to turn it in. And they didn't do it with me. And then when it didn't work, they wanted to treat me like shit because I must have done it wrong. Jesus fucking Christ. None of you are actually helping me. And then there's the 10,000 ideas guys. You know, the guys who can't listen for 30 seconds without having another 10,000 ideas and saying, oh, have you tried calling the cops? Yes, I fucking tried calling the cops. There's a reason I'm trying to turn in the cops. There's a reason I'm trying to show you evidence that I called the cops. How about instead of you guessing all of these different agencies and asking me about 30 different agencies and whether or not I contacted them, if I contacted these people yet or those people yet, how about we focus on the most important part? You, as a friend or family member, have to actually look at the evidence, and then you have to help me to turn it in. Instead of playing this 20 questions and 5,000 guesses of who it needs to be turned into, well, the most important part before we turn it in is that you know what the fuck is going on. And you have to take the time to find out what the fuck is going on. Now, when this shit first started, I didn't go recording every single conversation and every minute of my day with my friends. I didn't record every single one of the efforts because I fucking couldn't. And my friends claimed that they would help me to do those things. Instead of helping me, they did exactly the same thing that I have to deal with out of people today. They're so busy giving ideas. I'm overwhelmed because of abuse and because of all of the mountains of paperwork that they won't even look at or take any grasp or understanding of how much time it's going to take to go through it. They want to give ideas. How about we do this? How about we do that? No, you need to stop. Stop giving suggestions and fucking listen. Stop telling me that stuff is unimportant when you haven't even let me finish. Stop telling me that you're a different drug addict than the other drug addicts, that you're not going to do that to me like they did. Instead of telling me those things, then prove it. You're not going to prove it to me by doing the same things they did. And being overly nice, I can't stand that. I have shit that I need to focus on. All right? And I cannot focus on what I need to focus on, which is remembering where each and every one of these little bits and pieces of evidence are so that I can get to them and find out where the dates are so that I can hopefully find a friend that will sit down and actually look at it. I have to try to hopefully get them to take a look at basically the Cliff's Notes version of it. Every time. This is the Cliff's Notes. This is a few of the threats against my life, a few of the situations of people assaulting me, a few of those, because they're not going to be able to pay attention long enough to look at all of it. And the thing is, most of these people have more in common with Natalie Bollinger than they have in common with me. Because unlike Natalie Bollinger, I was never a drug addict. And most drug addicts don't want to be judged for being on drugs. They don't want to be judged for the things they do on drugs. Most of them want to claim that the things that they did that were really fucked up because they were on drugs, they wanted to claim that they didn't do those things because of drugs. And then I'm ending up hearing all of these stories from these drug addicts who who else is trying to help me? Nobody. You're not helping me by sending me the phone number to somebody else who's going to send me the number to somebody else. Also, when it comes to the questions that you're asking, yeah, I get that you're asking questions, but this is a serious situation with a timeline to it, and I'm having to give you the Cliff Notes enough already, and now I'm having to stop what I'm doing to answer the questions that you want me to answer. So, okay, then I stop and I try to answer those questions, and I'm given, sarcasm, or I'm given snarkiness, or, a lot of times people say, oh, I believe you, and then they never look. Or then there's the people who are sarcastic when I tell them what's going on, and you can hear the tone in their voice that they're being fucking snarky with you when you tell them what the abuse is, or when you try to tell what the abuse is. And on average, by the time I get somebody who claims that they care to actually take a look at one piece of evidence, I've already invested at least 8 hours of talking to these people over a long period of time. These people have gotten to see, my vehicle with the windows busted out and the side of my vehicle kicked in. They wonder how those things happened, and I tell them I have a recording of how that happened. I have recordings of Andrew Wolnez kicking my vehicle on at least half a dozen occasions. But then, of course, those folks don't have time. But they'll make time for a lot of stuff, a lot of other stuff to supposedly help me when I'm already overwhelmed enough as is. And when I try to explain to them that I'm overwhelmed with all of this, I'm having enough problems sorting what I have in my tent already without having more stuff added to it and more projects added to it and more things that are difficult for me to handle or manage. The projects that I'm working on, I've got all these tools and stuff, but I'm not building anything gigantic or heavy. I'm not working with anything gigantic or heavy. I'm also not working with power tools. This right here definitely weighs less than a pound. It's pretty much useless as is. I do have plans for the thing in the future. There's lots of really cool stuff I can do with that. But also, I am petrified that the police or Andrew Wolnez or Scott Brown or any number of these other people with a history of abusing me are going to do it again, because nobody's taken the time to actually sit down and let me show the whole video. When they say, let's do this, let's do that, let's move it into this area, let's move it into that area. How about I have this tent set up perfectly so that if someone sits next to me, then we can watch it on my computer. And, people made it impossible because they couldn't do it in person because they were hundreds of miles away. That's understandable, how we're trying to do this stuff from hundreds of miles away because people from hundreds of miles away are trying to help. But when it's not working out because they have to show me in person, that's not my fault. If you're going to tell me to do something and not do it with me, you are setting me up for failure. If you're going to tell me that you will go in with me to talk to the police about what you know, and then you never follow through, you are not only setting me up for failure, you are intentionally harming me at that point. You have wasted my time. You have done exactly what it is that the police have done. You have wasted a bunch of my time. A lot of people, they take it so seriously that they want to do this stuff all off on their own. Oh, send it to me, Sean. They don't give me a way to send it to them. They talk about all this electronic shit, and literally you end up listening to 2 or 3 days worth by the end of it all. The thing with Ed, my sister's friend who's going to help me, this guy, his disabilities are important. They matter because his disabilities show that he should have never been involved in the situation. He never should have been there. It was inappropriate for him to be there, and my sister knew it, and I told her that. One-on-one, and you need to listen. If I'm going to pay you money to help me, you need to help me how I'm paying you to help me. If I have to offer you money to help me because you're not helping me, one of the reasons that I offer people money who are offering to help me for free is because they don't get off their asses to help me. Well, if I fucking pay you to keep your fucking word, will you keep your word then? Then there's the situation with many of them how, well, for example, some of them might have an actual schizophrenic that they're trying to take care of, and they're overwhelmed by that schizophrenic. Or they might have a family member who is in a really screwed up situation. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen and do happen. There's a lot of reasons why people can't follow through after they've given their word, after they've promised to do something. And that's the thing about people not wanting their personal business out there. You know what? It's not your personal business. It's not. If these are your reasons and or excuses for not helping me, they do matter in court because I did try to get help. If you offered to help me and you didn't help me how I need, or you assumed the help that I needed and you just want to keep on changing the subject and pushing that over and over again, that really sucks for me. You know, it's not like I'm not used to that. When I was younger, all right, my mom was a horrible parent. A horrible parent. She chose drugs over her kids. All of her kids have been incarcerated for things that she's done. So no, it's not a good situation. So because of the abuse from my mom, I had to try to find somebody else who actually cared about me as a human being, so that when I'm harmed, that I could safely turn it in. Instead, I got people who pretended to be my friend until I needed help, and then they bullied me for needing help. When people's idea of helping you to stop abuse is to bully you into moving somewhere else, no, that's not help. And also there's the overly interruptive, all right? When you're trying to be a people pleaser, you know what would please me? Is if you stop promising me things and not following through, number one. And number two, if you would stop trying to replace actual help with useless shit. I understand that you offering me some lemonade is you trying to be nice. But if I tell you I already have some water right here and I also have some lemonade right next to me, but thank you for offering, I shouldn't have to tell you 8 more times, thank you for offering. At that point, you have wasted a lot of the time that I need to be able to work on what I'm working on. And if you've promised to help me to work on that at a particular time, and this is one of the things that is important about if somebody is actually going to help you, they'll actually set a time and they'll actually follow through. If they're not able to follow through, they will at least get a hold of you to let you know. Not to do so isn't just disrespectful. There's a reason it's disrespectful. If you're not on time, people have every right to fucking worry, especially in the world we live in today. When Natalie disappeared, my friends and the police who had been involved before Natalie was killed, there's a reason that they never came forward with what they knew. The fact is, I had to record conversations with them to prove that I was telling the truth, that I did tell the truth every step of the way, and that these people who knew that I was telling the truth, whose own voices are recorded, admitting that I told the truth. The question is, why isn't that in court? Why was that never in court? You listen to how many of them claimed that they tried to turn these crimes committed against me in, and the bullying by the Bollingers. Meanwhile, in court, they claimed that nobody would help me, that I didn't try to get help, that nobody would help me, probably because of the way that I act. Oh, you mean that if you beat on somebody repeatedly and they scream for help, that they're all of a sudden a bad person? that if you lie to somebody repeatedly and they're being physically assaulted because you wasted their time and lied to them, this time is an important thing, okay? When people say, oh, it takes time, no, they are procrastinating. You can listen immediately, you can turn it in immediately. If you can take the time to make 10,000 different ideas that you have that you want to do that you think will help them out, and each one of those is going to take time and money, keep in mind that I don't have the time or money to do what it is that I need in order to stop the abuse. In order to stop the abuse, I have to prove that it's happening. In order to prove that it's happening, I have to get a friend or family member to look at it and turn it in with me. But if they never look at it, because they're busy telling me they believe me, and then later on when I say, hey, you promised me you'd turn it in with me. Oh, you never showed me any evidence. And then there's the many, many, many people who have seen evidence. But we never get to the next step of them turning it in with me. Yeah, we need to do that like now, not in fucking 3 weeks. A lot of the witnesses out here that are witnesses to the physical assaults and the BS from Molnez are absolutely willing to turn it in. They even wrote written reports for me to make copies of and give to the police. One thing they were not willing to do is to trap themselves into seclusion and abuse by talking to the police without some upstanding member of the community there and present so that they will be allowed to say those things. Your good intentions are 99% of the problems. All right? Because your good intentions are based on your assumptions, and your assumptions are what's getting in the way. You've already assumed. Many of you ask questions that project your assumptions. When you're snarky with somebody who has come to you because they're being abused, and you're snarky with them for it, that's a horrible thing to put them through. How are they going to trust you when you're constantly doing that? Now, it probably takes 8 hours of time talking to somebody before they eventually look at a piece of evidence. Meanwhile, I will literally have a phone full of evidence in my hand and be trying to show it to them the entire time. But it's an issue where they have opinions. Their opinions are more important than looking at the evidence. By the time you do get around to them and the time that they claim that they're going to look at the evidence, oftentimes they're going to be so incredibly busy telling you that they don't have very much time. They don't have very much time. You're being a horrible person at that point. If you tell somebody that you've only got half an hour, but you're going to listen to their story, and then during that half hour, you interrupt them 7 or 8 times to tell them a story about how you don't have very much time, and you're interrupting them at fucking 13 minutes to say, hey man, I said half an hour, we're already 13 minutes in, I'm going to need you to wrap it up. Like, you're not fucking listening, you're just being an asshole. Now, of course, the people who have helped me, I'm sure that when they go through this list, like many of them have in the past, they've gone through a whole list of 10 different things that people have done that are horrible to me. And they'll go through and they'll realize that they've done 9 of them, but they didn't do number 10. And they'll go, oh, well, I didn't do that to you. I didn't do that to you. Well, I'll admit that you didn't do that particular one to me, but you did do the other 9. When I go to you for help, you treat me completely like shit. When you promise to help and say that you'll look at evidence, then you make it impossible to even show you the evidence. You want to get frustrated because you want it to be your turn to talk. You have an opinion based on looking at no evidence. then once they start looking at evidence, it starts to open up. It starts to broaden their horizons. The first time that they see a video of somebody fucking bashing me in the head with something, it really changes their way of thinking. Like, oh my God, this is not a fucking delusion. I've had several people who have looked at that stuff and gone, oh my God, dude, that is a nightmare. And then immediately followed by, I am scared shitless. You want my help turning that in? And you're telling me that there was police involved in helping these people to get away with hitting you in the head with that? Yeah, dude, I'm not down. And so many people said, I'm not afraid of the police. I'm not afraid of the police. I'm not afraid of these internet nut jobs that are trying to intimidate people. And then they get a hold of me and say, hey, Sean, these people are threatening to kill my friends and family. I got to block you. I'm out of here. I can't be your friend if it's going to result in that. Meanwhile, I got the evidence that they said those things and typed those things. But at the same time, by the time in that half an hour, after we've gotten through with you telling me that you don't have very much time, and being mean about it. Like, yeah, I heard you the first 6 times. Now you're just trying to fucking rile me up. You're trying to put me in a sense of impending doom at that point. And then you're also interjecting repeatedly to talk about yourself and all of the things that you've got going on. If your daughter was fucking raped, how much would you have going on? I'm sure you would clear your fucking schedule now, wouldn't you? When you promise that you're going to help somebody and then you don't keep in contact with them, or you make it about you every single time that you talk, or you promise to help them if they show up on such and such a day and they show up on that day and it costs them hundreds of dollars of disability money. I mean, you don't make a lot on disability. It's not exactly enough to live on. And they go down there because you say that you're going to help them in person. You're going to look at the evidence in person and you're going to go in with them to turn it in person. And then they get there and they spend 3 days while you play fucking Candy Crush Saga or Diablo 3 or fucking Wordplay on your computer or your PlayStation or your telephone. And then those people want to yell at me like, oh, well, you're always on your phone. I'm not. But when I am on my phone, I don't get downtime to play computer games. I had to get rid of all of the computer games on my computer so that I could make room for more evidence. I had to do the same thing on my telephones. When these people tell me, when I tell them I haven't had anybody to help me, and they want to interrupt to say, well, that's not true now. You have somebody now. No, I've heard that before. I've heard that before. That doesn't give me a sense of safety in that situation. Matter of fact, because so many people who have been predatory towards me have said that, it makes me feel unsafe. Because the thing is that, for example, a lot of these folks, they'll try not to be that way. They want an equality thing as far as the victim's story goes. If the victim's going to tell you what they went through and their firsthand experience, you feel like you should be able to use your imagination and throw out a bunch of imaginary shit that's based on listening to 5 sentences. And it is imaginary shit. At that point, you've already decided that you formulated solutions, or you have enough information about the situation to have already fully formulated an opinion and a solution. And now this is what you are going to push on the victim. No. Don't assume and don't interrupt them. Or, of course, there's you promise them that you're going to help them, and every single time something comes up, well, then the victim gets treated like they're a liar. They get treated like they never tried to turn it in. When they have to try to turn it in by themselves, they may very well get arrested or beaten or even shot if they're a fucking disabled person. okay? Especially if they have a history of mental illness, like being autistic. Yeah, you can get shot in the fucking head by a police officer literally just for exhibiting signs of autism. That is not a fucking joke. And it's more likely if you're a homeless person, and if you're a homeless person, they'll forget that you're autistic. Oh, it's wrong to kill a black person. But if that black person is a homeless person, you no longer, as the news or the American people, identify them as a black person. They are now a homeless person, and homeless people don't mean shit to any of you. Then there's the part where I have to try to understand. I have to try to understand that a lot of these folks are dealing with actual schizophrenics or really screwed up situations like that. And people who are rambling nonstop because they're on drugs, not because they're traumatized. When it comes to a situation where I have to interrupt repeatedly and talk 400 miles an hour, it's because you've interrupted me repeatedly, and I'm just hoping that if I say what I need to say, hopefully something will stick. Hopefully something that I'm telling you will stick. Hopefully it's something that you will remember. But a lot of times people are only waiting for a pause in whatever it is that you're saying because they've got some little nugget that they think it is going to fix it. They don't know anything yet, but they already know how to fix it. Well, I'm going to tell you how to fix it. Turn it in with the victim. Become informed and turn it in. Together. Not by yourself. It is unsafe to turn in abuse to the police by yourself, especially if you are disabled. And the recordings that I have with the police exhibit exactly that. They will talk in circles because they don't want to do any fucking work. They just want to collect a paycheck, just like a fucking judge, just like a public pretender, just like a prosecutor. The only thing that makes them care is if a friend or family member shows that they care about the victim enough to actually be there and help to turn this shit in, to actually take an active role. And ordering a victim around is not an active role, especially when you put stipulations on it. Because when you've got two people who have promised to help you under stipulations, one of them tells you, I'll only help you if you don't talk to Carl Rogers anymore. And the other one says, I will only help you if you do work with Carl Rogers. Now let's imagine both of these people have evidence that is important in my case, and I have to make them happy in order to have access to that evidence. That's manipulation and blackmail. Also, due to the fact that it's evidence of abuse against at-risk adults, not just myself, but also Natalie Bollinger. Yes, there is actual evidence of the actual abuse from her actual predators, but you don't want to listen. You're too busy telling me your opinions that are based on what? On not looking. On not taking it seriously. On not understanding there's a time limit. On not understanding that if it takes you 3 or 4 days to look at one video, and you're hopefully going to do the math here, there's 8,000 videos on my YouTube channel. Now let's say on average, each video is an hour long. Now, we don't have to go through all 8,000 of them, but it's going to take an hour to actually listen to a full hour-long video now, isn't it? Plus, you have to add the time where you write down what's in it, the name of the video, stuff like that, so that it's easy to find. It's a matter of organization. But you have to be able to organize, and you can't get organized if you are hung up on something. A lot of people got hung up because I accidentally said the wrong word, and when I said the wrong word, I did apologize. But many of these people were only looking for an excuse not to keep their word. Anything that they could use an excuse to alleviate the burden that they felt by promising me they were going to do something that they never actually intended on doing. Sort of, whimsically, they thought that they were going to be able to do it, or thought that they might be able to try, and thought that it would be easy. And then when they realized they actually had to do something other than tell me what a good boy I am, it was a much different story. Kind of like those folks who promised me that they weren't going to help me unless I tried to patch things up with my mom. So I tried to patch things up with my mom, and my mom did what she always did. Took advantage of the situation, took advantage of my money, and, of course, showed me that there's a good reason to stay away from your family if your family are my family or the Bollinger family. People promise to help, but then when they promise to help how you want, like how I needed somebody to turn it in with me, either over the phone or in person. Now, it was almost, and still is, almost like I must be saying that in some foreign language and not know it, because nobody seems to understand those simple words in the English language. Making the victim go in alone is setting them up for failure, because they are most likely to be victimized when they are alone, and that includes by police. Just like any other predator, if a police officer is a predator and he wants to harm you, he doesn't want to get in trouble for it. And this is part of the reason that many predators become police officers. Then there's the Brady list, right? Once these officers were busted lying out their asses, especially knowing that it was resulting in me being physically assaulted and my life being threatened, yeah, those motherfuckers should have been Brady listed. But you have to convince a friend or family member to actually spend the time after they've promised to do so. Most of these people who have said, well, you have somebody who's going to help you now. Okay, well then, help me. Let's actually watch these videos. And when you tell me, well, when you come up with reasons or excuses why you can't watch the whole video or listen to the whole video, well, then how are you helping? When you said that you would, when you said you would take the time to do it, and then you can't take the time to spend an hour of it to do that. All of the time that we spent arguing could have been spent looking at evidence. All the time that I was spending trying to answer your, in some occasions, literally hundreds of questions, and all of that amount of time, we could have been looking at evidence. And all of the time that you bounce what's going on in your life off of me like I'm your therapist, because you're not asking me for help doing anything about it. You're not asking for help stopping abuse. You're not asking for help ending abuse. You're just using me as a sounding board. So I listen. And I've had so many people who wanted to get angry with me because I didn't make any suggestions. I'm like, why would I make a suggestion? I'm listening to you tell me about your situation. Now, at the end, if you want to ask for my help, like, for example, if you're going to tell me that your ex-husband is stalking you, don't tell me that unless you want me to go to the police with you. And that's not a fucking joke. I am sick of women manipulating me and then playing fucking victim or stupid later on. If you're going to tell me that your ex is beating you, I will help you to get out of that situation under one circumstance and one circumstance only. You have to get a hold of the police. If you're going to tell me that your ex beat the shit out of you, all crying and whining and telling me that you need help getting out of that situation, I fucking know better. If he actually beat on her, or if she's actually serious about the abuse and stopping it, she will turn it into the police. If that's not what she does, I will tell you from experience that the majority of the time, if she doesn't turn him into the police right away, she's fucking manipulating you. And when she goes back to him, there's a reason she didn't turn him into the cops. There's a reason that she called you instead of the cops. She's hoping she can manipulate you into doing something fucking stupid. Now, when she gets back with him in a couple of weeks, it's going to be blamed on you. And the abuse that you had to take from that asshole, or the abuse that that woman had to take from that asshole prior to you helping her, now that she's gone back to him, it's now projected onto you by this guy and his friends. And she's not your friend again. She's not going to be your friend again until he beats the fuck out of her again. And when you're not going to take another fucking ass whooping to fucking help her out of that situation because she's just going to go back, she treats you like you're a horrible person. Like you are the world's shittiest person because you're not going to fucking let her abuse you and him and his friends abuse you like that again. No, you cried wolf. All right? Yeah, I saw the bruises. Let's take Jamie Curtis, for example. I saw the bruises on her body. Okay? I saw those bruises. I heard her story about where those bruises came from. I also know who it was that was there when James did that to her. I also know that I was there to help her move out of James's house. I was there to help her move out of James's house because he kept hitting her and the boy. Myself, Todd Rust, and several others. So what happened? Jamie wanted to continue to manipulate me by telling me after she'd moved out of there, after he'd beaten on her telling me that she's afraid because she lives in the same town as him. So we're going to keep in contact. And if something happens to her, like we're going to keep in contact so I'll know if something happens to her. Well, during that period of time, according to James, him and Jamie started dating, and I got verification from fucking Jamie about that shit as well. While she was in that situation and actually got beaten on by James and needed all this help, well, after the fact, you get to see that James and his friends and family went to fucking town at me, calling me a liar, going out of their way to slander my name and harass me in large groups. It wasn't just James. It wasn't just his twin brother John. It wasn't just his cousin Seth. Or nephew Seth, sorry. They did this as a group. Meanwhile, Jamie allowed me to be the one that was victimized over it. She's the one who set up the situation by crying wolf. You know what would have protected me in that situation? Calling the fucking cops on James because of Jamie's fucking bruises. But Jamie didn't want to do that. And according to James, he only did it because she hit him first. Well, there's also an eyewitness that wasn't James or Jamie, somebody who got to see it. So maybe we should listen to the person who is actually there to see it. You ever think of that? Jamie's not the only one who did that. Now, there's a lot of people who were my friends until it threatened their drug supply because their drug dealer was one of the people who was fucking assaulting me and threatening my life. For example, Kayla Trujillo. Jesus, fuck, that was a fucked up situation. Here she was, promising me that she was going to help me before Natalie died, but she never quite followed through. Then after Natalie died, she was promising to help me. Oh, and then she found out that fucking her drug dealer is one of my predators, and after that, what was supposed to happen? She still wants access to the drugs. And every drug addict wants to tell me that they're different from all of the other drug addicts. And then when they do the same thing as the other drug addicts, they tell me, well, you knew I was an addict. Yeah, that's a valid excuse. All right, fine. Meanwhile, I already know that that's going to happen. There's a small percent chance that that won't happen. But the fact that I got nobody else who's helping me means that I have to fucking take the risk. Somebody has to sit with me and look at the evidence. My predators will just pick apart little bits and pieces. It's called cherry picking, to try to make me out to be some sort of a horrible person. And that is not okay. You read the book of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn and decide that the whole book is just the N-word over and over and over again because the N-word happens to be in it? No. You take it for what it is. It's literature. And it's real. If you call somebody something, if that's actually what people are doing, then yes, write it down. If it's a fictionalization of your times, and that is the reality of your times, then yes, write it down. Why would you try to hide that? Why would you try to hide the horrible things that are going on? Why wouldn't you portray things as they are instead of your idealized version of it? When it comes down to people making excuses, they're never going to stop making excuses. And they know which ones are excuses that you're supposed to accept. Like after they've wasted all your time and not followed through, you're supposed to take the hint that when they say that they got cancer, it means they just don't fucking give a shit. They never did. A lot of these people who promised to help me, they only promised to help me until it was no longer popular to them. Well, for a lot of those people, it became even more popular after they left. As soon as people started realizing that I was telling the truth, the police went out of their way to try to prevent that truth from coming forward, to prevent that evidence from coming forward, to prevent me in the period immediately after Natalie's death from being able to coordinate with people to show what was going on. And the Bollinger family and the police worked together and coordinated together to do this. The Bollinger family used Facebook groups to coordinate their attacks. And they also coordinated with the police. If I called in a crime that was committed against me, I'd get blown off. But if I act like my predators for 1 fucking minute, guaranteed all of those predators are going to go, see, look at me, I'm the victim. See, I finally got Sean to do something. Look at me, see, I'm the victim. No, fuck you. And where's the actual friend who's going to listen to you without making it an argument or trying to feed you tea and crumpets all fucking day? You know, when you offer it, that's nice of you. Thank you. But please stop interrupting something that is more important than getting something to drink, because a lot of these people expect me to take their hospitality because it's offered. The thing is that I now have to find a place and all of this crap to put the tea, which is now a hazard to all of the stuff, electronics and paper evidence, that it could possibly get spilled on. Now I've got an extra cup in here that I have to do something with. At the same time, I might not want or need any lemonade. I might have my own lemonade. And the expectation that I am to accept what you're giving me and say thank you. No, this is a ritual, and it's a useless ritual. It is a useless ritual. It wastes time, and it prevents me from staying on track of what I need to work on. And I have to go through, and when somebody tells me, yeah, I'll be there to help you at 9 o'clock tomorrow, so I pull up a bunch of evidence to show them so that it's prepared for when they get here. And it takes 4 to 6 hours to go through and find that stuff and dig it up and get it ready to show them. And then when they get here, it's 3/4 of that time they're busy interrupting to make suggestions, or wanting to talk about how they're the one good drug addict, or wanting to borrow something, or wanting to tell me a story about how they have something similar going on. Well, if you got something similar going on, let's turn it in together. I'm fine with that. And with these folks who promised to help me, their excuses for why they didn't follow through are important. Why is it these folks chose to, instead of help me, to take advantage of me? Now, not every single one of them did. Not all of these people took advantage of me. Some of them ended up getting severely screwed for trying to help me. I'll admit that. That's absolutely true. There are more than one person who didn't do anything screwed up, not intentionally anyway, that ended up getting the shaft over it. Like my little sister, for example, when she was telling me that she had to move multiple times over this, what had she done to have to move? That's what I want to know. How is it her fault that these people threatened her and intimidated her to the point that she had to move more than once? How is that my sister's fault? Of course, when these people tell me that somebody threatened them, well, then we need to turn it in. And I understand it's not safe to turn it in to Scott DaCosta, but we need to turn it in together. And my sister didn't even try, which is why it's hard to believe that it's true. But it's also easy to believe that it's true because Scott DaCosta has a history of doing things like that, and so do his deputies. They've been recorded doing many of those things that my sister claimed. Oh, they've got a history of doing those things to me. So do the internet nut jobs. So do the Bollinger family. So it's not like we don't have a pretty sizable list of suspects, and all people who tried to destroy evidence that I told the truth. From Jamie Curtis to the Bollinger family to James Payton and his family, and of course law enforcement. So a lot of things that you say that you mean to be nice, or to try to give me a sense that you're going to be the person to finally help me put a stop to this and that I don't need to worry anymore. No, I do have to worry. I still have to worry. I have to worry until you've taken the time to look at the evidence and help me to turn it in. I have to worry until somebody does something to help me get into a safe environment. And it's not a safe environment if I can't go to the police. It's not a safe environment if I have to depend on somebody who's got substance abuse issues or assault issues or control issues. Because people like that are only going to take advantage of disabled people. It is not okay that a disabled person should have to go to a drug addict and hope that that drug addict will do the same thing that a friend or family member would if a friend or family member knew that you were being harmed. With some of these people, like Kayla Trujillo, for example, I didn't know that she was a drug dealer. I knew that she sold pot. It wasn't until she told me that she was a drug dealer in a live recording that I knew that she was a drug dealer. course, Ted Bollinger was a drug dealer too. So was Natalie Bollinger, and so was Alicia Bollinger. Like, am I the only person I know that was never a drug dealer? Come on now. Anyway, tight ramble. Hope you hate it. Be safe. Hopefully you learned something from this. I know that I have communication issues and you aren't able to understand those communication issues. But that's not my fault, and it's not from a lack of trying.